Improving English speaking skills is a journey that requires persistence, dedication, and a willingness to embrace both challenges and mistakes. It's not just about learning grammar or vocabulary. It's about finding confidence in expressing yourself in a language that might not come naturally. English is a global language, and mastering it can open doors to new opportunities, whether it's in education, work, or social connections. But how do we go about improving our speaking skills? Let's start with the idea of immersion. Imagine you're in a foreign country where English is the primary language. You're walking down the street, trying to order a cup of coffee, but you're unsure how to ask. You struggle with the words, trying to remember what you've learned. The barista smiles and patiently waits as you finally manage to ask for your coffee. It's a small victory, but a victory nonetheless. This is the power of immersion. When you surround yourself with English, whether through conversations, movies, or reading, you begin to pick up the nuances of the language. Your brain starts to connect the dots, and over time, speaking English becomes more natural. A friend of mine, Carlos, once shared his story about learning English. Carlos was from a small town in Spain where English wasn't commonly spoken. He learned the basics in school. But he never had the opportunity to practice speaking. When he moved to London for work, he found himself struggling to communicate. He realized that understanding English and speaking it were two very different things. So, he decided to take matters into his own hands. Carlos started attending language exchange meetups where he could practice speaking with native English speakers. At first, he was nervous and made many mistakes. But the more he practiced, the more confident he became. Within a few months, Carlos could hold conversations with ease. And his confidence in speaking English grew tremendously. His journey reminds us that the key to improving speaking skills is practice, and lots of it. Another important aspect is listening. Listening to native speakers can greatly improve your pronunciation and understanding of how words are used in different contexts. I remember a student of mine, Priya, who struggled with her English speaking skills. She knew the grammar rules and had a good vocabulary, but when it came to speaking, she often froze up. I suggested she start listening to English podcasts, watching English movies, and even singing along to English songs. Over time, Priya noticed a significant improvement in her speaking skills. She began to mimic the intonation and rhythm of native speakers, which helped her sound more natural when she spoke. Listening is like a bridge that connects the knowledge in your mind to the words you speak. It helps you understand how language flows, making your speech more fluid and less stilted. Speaking of stories, there's another one that comes to mind. Arti, a young woman from India, had always dreamed of studying abroad. She knew that to achieve her dream, she needed to improve her English speaking skills. Arti had always been shy and was afraid of speaking in front of others. But she was determined. She started practicing in front of a mirror. Having conversations with herself, she would pretend to be in different situations, like ordering food at a restaurant or asking for directions. This might sound silly, but it worked wonders for Arti. She began to feel more comfortable speaking English. Her confidence grew, and soon she started speaking English with her friends and family. Arti's story teaches us that sometimes the best way to improve is to start small. Practice speaking English in a safe and comfortable environment before stepping out into the real world. Then, there's the importance of making mistakes. When learning a new language, it's easy to feel embarrassed when you make a mistake. but mistakes are a natural part of the learning process. I once knew a man named Ahmed who moved from Egypt to Canada. Ahmed was a perfectionist, and he was terrified of making mistakes when speaking English for months. He avoided speaking English altogether, worried that people would judge him for his mistakes. But one day, he had no choice. He needed to ask for directions. And his broken English was the only tool he had. To his surprise, the person he spoke to was patient and understanding. They helped him find his way and even complimented his effort. This experience was a turning point for Ahmed. He realized that mistakes are not something to be feared but embraced. The more mistakes he made, the more he learned. His English improved rapidly after that, and he became much more confident in his speaking abilities. Ahmed's story is a reminder that making mistakes is okay and that they are often our best teachers. One method that has helped many people improve their English speaking skills is repetition. I recall a teacher once telling me about a student who struggled with pronunciation. The student had trouble with the TH sound, which is common in English but doesn't exist in his native language. The teacher advised him to practice saying words with the TH sound over and over again. The student would stand in front of the mirror, repeating words like think, thank, and through until he got them right. It was tedious work, but eventually his pronunciation improved. Repetition might seem boring, but it's an effective way to train your muscles to produce new sounds. The more you repeat, the more natural it becomes. Another approach is to expand your vocabulary. I remember a story about a woman named Emmy from China. Emmy was a brilliant engineer, but she often found it difficult to express her ideas in English. She knew the technical terms related to her field, but struggled with everyday conversation. Emmy decided to carry a small notebook with her wherever she went. Whenever she encountered a word she didn't know, she would write it down and look it up later. She made it a point to use the new words she learned in conversation. Over time, May's vocabulary grew, and so did her confidence in speaking English. Expanding your vocabulary gives you more tools to express yourself, making conversation easier and more enjoyable. Confidence is key when it comes to speaking English. I once knew a young man named Ravi who was incredibly intelligent but struggled with self-doubt when speaking English. He would often second-guess himself, worried that his accent would make him sound foolish. But Ravi decided to take a different approach. He started focusing on what he was saying rather than how he was saying it. He realized that communication is about conveying ideas, not just perfect pronunciation. As Ravi's confidence grew, so did his speaking skills. He became more articulate, and people began to notice the clarity of his ideas rather than his accent. Ravi's story is a powerful reminder that confidence can transform your speaking skills. Believe in yourself, and others will too. Storytelling is another excellent way to improve your speaking skills. I once met a man named Marco from Italy who had a unique way of practicing English. He loved telling stories. So he would narrate his day or make up fictional tales in English. He would do this while walking his dog or cooking dinner. It might sound unusual, but it worked for him. Storytelling allowed Marco to practice speaking English in a fun and creative way. It helped him structure his thoughts and improved his fluency. If you enjoy storytelling, try narrating your own experiences or even creating your own stories in English. It's a great way to practice speaking while also engaging your imagination. One final story I'd like to share is about a woman named Maria who moved from Brazil to the United States. Maria was determined to improve her English, so she joined a local theater group. At first, she was terrified of speaking in front of an audience, but the experience turned out to be incredibly rewarding. Through acting, Maria was able to practice her English in a dynamic and interactive way. She learned how to express emotions, use gestures, and convey meaning through her words. The theater helped her break out of her shell and become more confident in her speaking abilities. Maria's story shows that sometimes unconventional methods can be the most effective. Don't be afraid to try new things and step out of your comfort zone when practicing English. In conclusion, improving English speaking skills is a journey that involves practice, listening, making mistakes, repetition, expanding your vocabulary, building confidence, and sometimes even trying unconventional methods. Everyone's journey is different, and what works for one person might not work for another, but the key is to keep going, to keep practicing, and to never give up. Remember, every conversation, every word you speak in English is a step towards mastery, whether you're speaking with a friend, practicing in front of a mirror, or telling a story. Each effort brings you closer to becoming a confident and fluent English speaker. And along the way, you'll find that not only have you improved your language skills, but you've also grown in confidence and ability to communicate with the world. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe and share. See you soon.